Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Quotes 365. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in someone's life? Maybe you've gone out of your way to show care, to be present, to give your all, only to realize they barely notice or appreciate it. It's a painful, exhausting feeling, isn't it? You start wondering, what did I do wrong? Why am I not enough for them? Now, let me flip the script for you. What if, instead of chasing their attention or overanalyzing their behavior, you chose to step back? What if, instead of exhausting yourself trying to hold on to them, you decided to let go and prioritize yourself? Here's the fascinating part. When you ignore them, it changes the dynamic entirely. Their actions may surprise you, even shock you. The truth is, ignoring someone doesn't just affect them, it's also a powerful statement about your own self-worth. It shows that you're no longer willing to invest in one-sided relationships. You're choosing to protect your peace, your energy, and your time. And that choice, it speaks volumes. It's an action rooted in self-respect and the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. But here's where it gets interesting. People often react in unexpected ways when they realize you're no longer chasing them. Maybe they'll start craving your validation, testing your boundaries, or pretending they don't care while secretly overthinking everything. Or perhaps they'll seek attention elsewhere, trying to fill the void you've left. Some might even disappear altogether. But don't let that fool you into thinking you've lost. Sometimes, indifference is the loudest response of all. In today's video, we're diving deep into these reactions. We'll explore the psychology behind why people behave the way they do when you ignore them. From the initial confusion and overcompensation to moments of introspection and eventual transformation, you'll learn how your silence can shift the power dynamics in any relationship. But more than that, Stoic friend, this video is about reclaiming your power. It's about stepping into a space where you're no longer defined by someone else's actions or inaction. It's about realizing that the most valuable relationship you have is the one with yourself. And when you prioritize that, everything else starts to fall into place. If you've been feeling stuck in a cycle of overgiving, this video is for you. It's a reminder that your worth isn't tied to how hard you try to please someone else. It's tied to how much you respect yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply step back and let others feel the weight of your absence. All right, folks, let's dive into what happens when you stop chasing and start ignoring. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Number 1. They start chasing you for validation. Hey folks, let's dive right into this fascinating phenomenon. Have you ever noticed how, when you finally stop reaching out or chasing someone's attention, their behavior starts to shift? It's almost like the roles reverse, and suddenly, they're the ones seeking you out. Why does this happen? Let's break it down together. When you decide to ignore someone, whether intentionally or because you're prioritizing your own peace, you're creating a void in their life. People are wired to seek validation from those who once gave it freely, and when that source disappears, it triggers a psychological reaction. They start to wonder, why aren't they texting me anymore? Did I do something wrong? Have I lost their attention? This sense of uncertainty can be unsettling for them, and their instinctive response is often to try and regain the connection they feel slipping away. Now, let's dig deeper into the psychology behind this. Validation is a powerful motivator for human behavior. When someone receives consistent attention, it feeds their ego and reinforces their sense of importance. But when that attention disappears, it creates a gap they're compelled to fill. This is why they start chasing you, reaching out with texts, calls, or even unexpected gestures. They're trying to restore the balance, not because they've suddenly changed, but because they miss the validation you used to provide. But here's the thing, Stoic friend, when they start chasing you, it's not always about you. Often, it's about their own need to feel in control. By ignoring them, you've taken away that control, and now they're working to get it back. This doesn't mean they've suddenly realized your worth or want a deeper connection. It might simply be their ego trying to recover from the perceived loss. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine was in a relationship where they were constantly initiating contact, sending messages, planning dates, making an effort. But when they finally decided to take a step back and stop trying so hard, something interesting happened. Their partner, who had always seemed distant, suddenly became more attentive. They started reaching out first, asking questions, and showing interest in ways they hadn't before. It wasn't because their partner had a sudden change of heart. It was because the dynamic had shifted. The absence of effort on one side highlighted the imbalance, forcing the other person to react. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore people as a manipulation tactic. That's not what we're about here. Instead, think of it as a way to recalibrate relationships that feel one-sided. By stepping back, you're giving the other person the opportunity to evaluate what your presence means to them. It's a chance for them to decide if they value the connection enough to put in the effort to maintain it. But here's where things get interesting. Sometimes, their chasing isn't genuine. It's reactive. They might want the validation you provide, but not necessarily the deeper connection that comes with it. This is why it's so important to observe their actions closely. Are they reaching out because they truly value you? Or are they simply trying to regain control? The difference is subtle but crucial. So, what should you do when this happens? Stay grounded in your intentions. Remember, the goal of stepping back isn't to punish or manipulate. It's to prioritize your own well-being and give space for clarity. If they start chasing you, take it as an opportunity to reassess the relationship. Are their actions aligning with their words? Are they showing genuine effort? Or is it just about soothing their own ego? These are the questions that will help you decide how to move forward. Let me leave you with this thought, Stoic friend. When someone starts chasing you after you've stepped back, it's a reflection of how much your presence mattered to them. But it's also a chance to evaluate whether their pursuit is rooted in sincerity or self-interest. Use this moment to stay true to yourself and your values. And remember, you're not just worthy of attention, you're worthy of respect, effort, and genuine connection. Drop this in the comments. I value my presence. Let me know if you've experienced this dynamic and how it played out for you. And if this video resonates with you, don't forget to hit subscribe. Together, we're building a community rooted in self-respect and the wisdom of Stoic living. Stay strong, and let's keep going. Number 2, they test your boundaries to regain control. Hey folks, let's talk about something that often happens when you start to step back and prioritize yourself. They begin testing your boundaries. It might not be obvious at first, but over time, their actions reveal a pattern. When someone feels like they're losing control of the dynamic, their natural instinct is often to push back, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly. This can show up in ways you might not expect, and it's important to recognize it when it happens. Think about it. Boundaries are like invisible lines that define what's acceptable and what's not in your relationships. When you set them, you're essentially saying, this is where I stand, and this is what I need to feel respected and valued. But not everyone will accept those boundaries gracefully, especially if they're used to a different dynamic where you were always accommodating. Instead, they might try to test them to see if they can regain the control they feel they've lost. Let's break this down. Testing boundaries can take many forms. It might look like them reaching out at inconvenient times, knowing it disrupts your schedule, just to see if you'll still prioritize them. Or perhaps they bring up topics you've made clear you're not comfortable discussing, hoping to provoke a reaction. These actions are often subtle, but they're designed to challenge the limits you've set, to see if you'll hold your ground or bend under pressure. Here's the psychology behind it. When you establish boundaries, it changes the rules of the game. People who are used to having control or influence over you might feel threatened by this shift. To them, boundaries can feel like rejection, even if that's not your intention. Their testing behavior is a way of regaining a sense of control, of reasserting their place in the dynamic. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just an unconscious reaction to change, but it's still something you need to navigate carefully. So, what do you do when they start testing your boundaries? The first step is awareness. Recognize the behavior for what it is: a test. This doesn't mean you need to react or confront them immediately, but it does mean staying grounded in your intentions. Remember why you set those boundaries in the first place: to protect your peace, your energy, and your well-being. Next, respond calmly but firmly. For example, if someone keeps calling late at night, even though you've asked them not to, you can say, "I've mentioned that late night calls don't work for me. Let's find a time during the day to talk." This reinforces your boundary without escalating the situation. The key here is consistency. The more consistently you uphold your boundaries, the less room there is for others to push against them. But here's the tricky part. Stoic friend. Testing boundaries isn't always about overt actions. Sometimes it's about emotional manipulation. They might play the victim, saying things like, "You've changed," or "I guess you don't care anymore." These statements are designed to make you question your decisions and feel guilty about prioritizing yourself. It's in moments like these that Stoic philosophy can be your anchor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, stay focused on what you can control, your choices and your responses. Another thing to keep in mind is that not everyone will respect your boundaries, no matter how clearly you communicate them. And that's okay. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about defining what you will and won't tolerate. If someone consistently disregards your boundaries, it's a sign that they may not value the relationship as much as you do. As hard as it may be, sometimes the best way to enforce a boundary is to distance yourself from those who refuse to respect it. Let me leave you with this. Stoic friend, when someone tests your boundaries, it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're growing. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect, and by holding firm to them, you're sending a powerful message. I value myself and my peace. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Drop this in the comments. I stand firm with my boundaries. Let me know if you've experienced someone testing your limits and how you handled it. And if this resonates with you, hit subscribe. Your support helps this community grow stronger every day. Stay strong, folks, and remember, your boundaries are worth protecting. Number 3, they pretend not to care, but secretly overthink. Hey folks, let's talk about a behavior that's often hidden beneath the surface. When someone pretends not to care, but is secretly overthinking everything. It's a fascinating and, honestly, relatable reaction. On the outside, they might seem indifferent, acting as if your absence or silence doesn't bother them. But behind that mask of nonchalance, their mind is racing with questions, doubts, and scenarios. So why do people do this? And what does it really mean? Let's dive in. First, let's address the outward behavior. When someone pretends not to care, it's often a defense mechanism. They don't want to appear vulnerable or affected, especially if they think showing emotions might give you an upper hand. Instead, they put on a facade of indifference, ignoring your absence, avoiding direct communication, or even appearing happier and more carefree than usual. This can be frustrating, especially if you're hoping for genuine communication or reflection. But here's the kicker. Their outward behavior doesn't always match what's going on inside. Internally, they might be overthinking every detail. Why have they stopped texting me? Did I do something wrong? Are they moving on? These questions can spiral, leading to a mix of anxiety, regret, and self-doubt. Overthinking is a natural response when we lose a sense of control, and when someone is unsure about where they stand with you, their mind tends to fill in the gaps with assumptions and what-ifs. Why do they overthink? It comes down to the human need for certainty. People crave understanding and predictability in their relationships. When you step back or go silent, it disrupts that sense of stability, leaving them with unanswered questions. Instead of seeking clarity directly, they retreat into their thoughts, trying to piece together the puzzle. Ironically, the more they try to convince themselves that they don't care, the more mental energy they end up investing in you. But why not just admit they care? Well, for many, admitting vulnerability feels risky. It opens the door to rejection, judgment, or perceived weakness. In a world where playing it cool is often seen as a sign of strength, admitting emotional impact can feel counterintuitive. So instead of confronting their feelings or addressing the situation openly, they bury their emotions under a facade of apathy. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine went through a similar situation after a disagreement. They decided to step back and stop initiating contact with someone they'd been close to. For weeks, that person acted like nothing had changed. They posted happy updates on social media, avoided direct interaction, and seemed completely unbothered. But later, my friend found out that during this time, the other person had been asking mutual friends about them, analyzing their social media activity, and replaying conversations in their mind. Their outward indifference was just a cover for the overthinking that consumed them. So, how should you respond when someone pretends not to care but is secretly overthinking? The key is to stay focused on your own intentions. Don't let their facade manipulate you into chasing them or questioning your decision to step back. Remember, their overthinking is their responsibility, not yours. If they genuinely want clarity or connection, it's up to them to communicate that. From a Stoic perspective, this is a perfect example of focusing on what you can control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control whether someone chooses to overthink or pretend not to care, but you can control how you respond to their behavior. By staying grounded in your values and intentions, you maintain your peace and clarity. One important thing to keep in mind, Stoic friend, is that their overthinking isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes, it leads to genuine reflection and growth. When people take the time to think about their actions and relationships, they might come to realizations that prompt positive change. Your absence or silence could be the catalyst they need to reevaluate their priorities and behavior. Let me leave you with this thought. Pretending not to care is often a mask for deeper emotions. It's a way of avoiding vulnerability while grappling with uncertainty. But you don't have to get caught up in their overthinking. Stay true to yourself, trust your boundaries, and let their actions, not their facade, reveal their true intentions. Drop this in the comments. I focus on actions, not appearances. Let me know if you've encountered this kind of behavior and how you handled it. And if this message resonates, hit subscribe. Your support helps us grow this community of strength, clarity, and wisdom. Thanks for being here. And let's keep moving forward, together. Number 4. They seek validation from someone else. Hey folks, let's talk about one of the most common reactions when you step back and stop giving someone the attention they're used to. They start seeking validation from someone else. It might feel hurtful or even like a betrayal to see this happen, but it's important to understand what's really going on beneath the surface. This isn't necessarily about you. It's about their need to fill the void that your absence has created. Validation is a powerful motivator in human behavior. When someone is used to receiving consistent attention, compliments, or emotional support, it becomes a part of their sense of self-worth. So, when you step back, that source of validation disappears. And for some, it's like losing a lifeline. Instead of reflecting inward or addressing the root of the issue, they might seek out another person to provide the same sense of reassurance. This behavior can manifest in a variety of ways. Perhaps they start spending more time with friends who praise them or turn to social media, posting attention-grabbing updates to garner likes and comments. In some cases, they might even enter a new relationship or rekindle old connections. It's not necessarily about forming genuine bonds. It's about filling the gap and reassuring themselves that they're still valued and wanted. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Seeking validation from someone else doesn't actually address their deeper emotional needs. It's a temporary fix, a way to distract themselves from the discomfort of your absence. But like any quick solution, it doesn't last. The new attention might feel good initially, but it rarely provides the same sense of connection or fulfillment as the validation they received from you. And often, they end up in a cycle of chasing approval, never truly addressing the core issue. From a psychological perspective, this behavior stems from insecurity. People who rely heavily on external validation often struggle with self-esteem. Instead of finding worth within themselves, they depend on others to provide it. Your decision to step back forces them to confront this reliance. But instead of addressing it directly, they might choose the easier path of seeking someone else to fill that role. So, what should you do when you notice this happening? First and foremost, don't take it personally. Their actions are a reflection of their own insecurities and coping mechanisms, not a judgment of your worth. It's easy to feel hurt or replaced, but remember, your value isn't diminished by someone else's inability to recognize it. Second, resist the urge to compete or chase them. It can be tempting to try to win back their attention or prove your worth, but that only puts you back in the same cycle you were trying to break free from. Instead, focus on maintaining your boundaries and staying true to yourself. Let their actions reveal what matters most to them, and use that information to decide how you want to move forward. The Stoics offer valuable wisdom here. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is a perfect opportunity to practice detachment and maintain your inner peace. Their search for validation elsewhere is beyond your control, but your response to it is entirely within your power. Here's another thing to consider. Sometimes, seeking validation from others can lead to valuable lessons for them. As they interact with new people or situations, they might realize that not all validation is created equal. The attention they seek elsewhere might not provide the depth or authenticity they once had with you. In some cases, this realization can prompt genuine reflection and even bring them back with a newfound appreciation for your presence. But whether or not that happens, Stoic friend, remember this: your worth isn't tied to anyone's ability to see it. By stepping back and allowing them to make their choices, you're also giving yourself the freedom to prioritize your own well-being and attract relationships that are truly mutual and respectful. Let me leave you with this thought. When someone seeks validation from others after you step back, it's not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their own journey. Stay grounded, trust in your boundaries, and remember that the relationships worth keeping are the ones where you're valued for who you are, not just the validation you provide. Drop this in the comments. I find strength in self-respect. Let me know how you've handled situations like this and what you've learned from them. And if this resonates with you, hit subscribe. We're building a community rooted in clarity, respect, and growth. Thank you for being here, and let's keep moving forward. Number 5, they disappear completely. The truth about indifference. Hey folks, let's get real about something that might feel unsettling. Sometimes, when you stop giving attention to someone, they disappear completely. It can feel shocking, confusing, or even painful. But here's the thing. When someone chooses to vanish from your life after you step back, it's not necessarily a loss. In fact, it often reveals more about them than it does about you. Let's unpack this together. When someone disappears, it's easy to internalize it as rejection. You might think, was I not important enough for them to stay? Or, did I do something wrong? But the truth is, their departure is less about you and more about their inability or unwillingness to deal with the shift in dynamics. For some people, the absence of validation or attention is a trigger that makes them retreat rather than confront their feelings. It's not about you lacking value. It's about them avoiding discomfort. From a psychological standpoint, disappearing can be a coping mechanism. For people who are uncomfortable with vulnerability, the idea of addressing a changing relationship dynamic might feel overwhelming. Instead of engaging, they choose to withdraw, cutting ties as a way to protect themselves from rejection or emotional confrontation. This behavior is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of being exposed, or fear of dealing with emotions they're not ready to face. But let's flip the perspective for a moment. If someone disappears when you step back, ask yourself, what does their absence say about the strength of our connection? True, meaningful relationships aren't built on constant attention or one-sided effort. They're built on mutual respect, communication, and a willingness to work through challenges. When someone walks away instead of engaging, it's a sign that the relationship might not have had the depth or resilience you deserve. Now, let's address the concept of indifference. Sometimes, their disappearance isn't about fear or avoidance. It's a reflection of their priorities. They might not have been as invested in the relationship as you thought, and your step back simply confirmed that for them. This realization can be painful, but it's also liberating. It frees you from pouring energy into someone who isn't willing to reciprocate. Stoic wisdom teaches us to focus on what we can control. And this is a perfect example. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When someone disappears, you can't control their actions, but you can control how you interpret and respond to them. Instead of seeing their absence as a reflection of your worth, see it as an opportunity to redirect your energy toward people and relationships that align with your values. Let's consider another perspective. Sometimes, their disappearance is a test of your own boundaries and growth. When they leave, it forces you to confront your own feelings of loss, rejection, or insecurity. This is a chance to practice self-compassion and remind yourself of the strength you've cultivated. It's not about denying your emotions. It's about embracing them as part of your journey. Here's a practical example to illustrate this. A friend of mine decided to step back from a friendship that had become one-sided. Instead of engaging in a conversation or attempting to address the situation, The other person simply stopped reaching out altogether. At first, my friend felt hurt, wondering if they'd made a mistake. But over time, they realized that the friendship had been built on convenience rather than mutual effort. The other person's disappearance, while painful initially, ultimately brought clarity and opened the door for more meaningful connections. So, what should you do when someone disappears? First, acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to feel hurt or confused. Those emotions are valid, but don't let them define your self-worth. Instead, use this as an opportunity to reflect on what you want and need in your relationships. Remember, someone who walks away when you step back isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their own limitations. Let me leave you with this thought. Stoic friend, when someone disappears, it might feel like a loss, but it's often a gain in disguise. It frees you to invest your time, energy, and heart into relationships that are built on respect, authenticity, and mutual effort. You deserve connections that uplift you, not ones that crumble when you set boundaries. Drop this in the comments. I let go of what's not meant for me. Let me know if you've experienced this situation and what you've learned from it. And if this resonates, hit subscribe. Your support helps us build a community where strength, clarity, and wisdom thrive. Thank you for being here, and let's keep moving forward together. Number 6. They reflect on their actions and start to change. Hey folks, let's talk about something powerful that can happen when you step back. They start to reflect on their actions and, in some cases, begin to change. It's not always immediate or dramatic, but for many people, your decision to prioritize yourself and set boundaries can serve as a wake-up call. Let's explore why this happens and what it means for you. When you step back, it creates space, not just for you, but for the other person as well. In that space, they're left to sit with their own thoughts, feelings, and, most importantly, their behavior. Without the constant distraction of your presence or validation, they're forced to confront the reality of the situation. They start asking themselves questions like, why did things change? Could I have done something differently? This process of reflection is often the first step toward growth. Here's the psychology behind it. People tend to take things for granted when they're always readily available. Your attention, care, and effort might have felt like a given to them before, but when you pull back, it disrupts that sense of certainty. Suddenly, they're faced with the possibility of losing something they once depended on, whether it was your emotional support, your understanding, or simply your presence. This disruption can lead to a deeper level of introspection. Reflection, however, isn't just about recognizing what went wrong. It's also about understanding their own patterns and choices. They might start to see how their actions or inactions contributed to the distance that's now between you. For some, this can be a humbling experience. It's not easy to admit mistakes or acknowledge areas where they could have done better. But for those who are truly committed to growth, this reflection becomes a catalyst for meaningful change. Now, it's important to note that not everyone will go through this process. Change requires a willingness to be vulnerable and take responsibility for one's actions, and not everyone is ready or willing to do that. But for those who are, your decision to step back can be the nudge they needed to start that journey. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine decided to take a step back from a relationship that had become draining and one-sided. At first, the other person reacted with defensiveness and distance. But over time, as the absence of my friend's effort became more apparent, they began to reflect. They realized they had been taking my friend's kindness for granted and weren't contributing equally to the relationship. This led to an honest conversation where they acknowledged their behavior and made a conscious effort to change. The relationship grew stronger as a result, not because of guilt, but because of genuine growth and understanding. So, what should you do when you notice someone reflecting on their actions? The first step is to give them the space to go through this process on their own. Reflection is deeply personal, and it's not something you can force or control. Resist the urge to rush in and fix things. Instead, focus on maintaining your own boundaries and letting their actions speak for themselves. If they start to show signs of change, whether it's through words, actions, or a combination of both, approach the situation with openness and curiosity. Ask yourself, are these changes consistent? Do they align with my needs and values? Are they coming from a place of authenticity, or are they just trying to win me back temporarily? These questions can help you evaluate whether their growth is genuine and whether it's worth rebuilding the relationship. Stoic philosophy offers us a valuable perspective here. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." By stepping back, you've created the conditions for learning and growth, not just for them, but for yourself as well. Their reflection and potential change are outcomes of the space you've created. And that's a testament to the power of boundaries and self-respect. Let me leave you with this thought. Stoic friend, not everyone will reflect on their actions or choose to change. And that's okay. Your worth isn't tied to someone else's growth. But when someone does take the time to reflect and grow, it's a reminder of the ripple effect that self-respect can have. By prioritizing yourself, you're not just reclaiming your power, you're inspiring others to do the same. Drop this in the comments. Growth begins with reflection. Let me know if you've seen someone change after you stepped back and how that impacted your relationship. And if this message resonates, hit subscribe. We're building a community that values self-awareness, growth, and respect. Thank you for being here, and let's keep growing stronger, together. Number 7, they return with a new approach or walk away forever. Hey folks, but let's talk about what happens when all is said and done. They either return with a new approach or they walk away for good. This is the final outcome of the dynamic shift you created by stepping back. It might feel like a dramatic conclusion, but in truth, this is where clarity comes into play. You finally get to see who they are and what they value, based on their response to your boundaries. When they choose to return, it's often because they've taken the time to reflect and realize what your presence in their life truly means. This return isn't about desperation or ego, it's about genuine recognition. They might come back with apologies, changed behavior, or a willingness to rebuild the connection on healthier terms. But here's the key. The way they return matters. Are their actions consistent with their words? Are they respecting your boundaries this time? If they've genuinely grown, their new approach will show a deeper level of maturity and understanding. For example, imagine someone who once took you for granted. After a period of silence, they might reach out with a heartfelt acknowledgement of their past behavior and express a desire to make things right. This doesn't mean you should immediately jump back into the relationship. It means you now have the opportunity to evaluate their sincerity. Real growth takes time and consistency, so give yourself the space to observe whether their actions align with their promises. On the other hand, some people choose to walk away forever. This might feel painful at first, especially if you were hoping for reconciliation or change. But their decision to leave isn't necessarily a loss, it's a revelation. It shows that they weren't willing or able to meet you at the level of respect and effort you deserve. And while that can be disappointing, it's also liberating. Their departure clears the way for healthier, more balanced relationships in your life. Walking away can also be their way of protecting their own ego. For some, the idea of returning and admitting fault feels too vulnerable. Instead of addressing the situation, they choose to move on, convincing themselves that the relationship wasn't worth the effort. While this might sting, it's important to remember that their inability to face their emotions isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own limitations. Here's the beauty of this moment. Regardless of whether they return or walk away, you've reclaimed your power. By stepping back, you've taken control of the narrative, prioritizing your peace and well-being over the need to chase validation. Their response, whether it's to return or leave, becomes a secondary concern. What matters most is that you've stayed true to yourself. The Stoics remind us to accept what we cannot control and focus on what we can. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wisdom is especially relevant here. Their choice to return or walk away is beyond your control. What you can control is how you move forward, whether that means rebuilding the relationship on your terms or letting it go with grace. Let me leave you with this. Stoic friend. When someone returns with a new approach, it can be an opportunity for growth and renewal if it aligns with your values. And when someone walks away forever, it's a chance to let go of what no longer serves you. Either way, you're stepping into a stronger, more authentic version of yourself, and that's the greatest victory of all. Hey folks, thank you for joining me today. Remember, stepping back isn't about punishing others. It's about honoring your own worth and creating space for clarity and growth. Whether they return or walk away, the most important thing is that you've stayed true to yourself. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us build a community rooted in self-respect and the wisdom of Stoic living. Take care, stay strong, and as always, keep embracing the Stoic path. See you in the next one.